One Sunday evening, I'm sitting in the middle of the restaurant, eating all by myself, and in walks a couple who had escorted me to clarity. This is that story. I love spending time with me. So, this affirmation is about one of my own dating stories. So, here it goes. In the late 2000s, I was in the singles ministry at my church. And my church, which is now, I don't know if it's considered a mega church, but at that time, my pastor, Pastor Watson, was officiating three services back to back in a high school because our building hadn't at that time been finished being built yet. So, but I was in the singles ministry. And singles ministry was, pretty active. We spent time together. We did a lot of charitable projects together. We met up, we ate, we hung out together. It was cool. Loved it a lot. So, this one time, it was Saturday morning, and the local gospel station there and back home coordinated a prayer breakfast for singles in the city. So that's for the entire city. So my church, our singles ministry, members met up there. We go. And we meet up there and we sit in order to just kind of meet and circulate with other people, which is encouraged by the radio station. Don't just group up with just your church and stay clicked up, basically. Everybody try to shuffle around and sit with other folks so that we can all fellowship with one another together. And we did. It was a kind of a banquet, kind of breakfast. It was really nice. And so we did that and kind of broke us up and separated out. I happened to be sitting next to this very attractive man. And he was nice. And we hit it off really well. He, in fact, invited me to his church. Shortly thereafter, I went to church with him. He was nice. It was really cool. We shared some interests. He was a cool guy. And we were having fun together. And we rode to church together. And I went to his church. Now, his church was a smaller church and what some may call a storefront church. This was fine with me because while my home church, which means basically the church I grew up in as a girl, or the church I would attend as a girl, was not really a small church, but it was on the smaller side of things, let's say. It wasn't a storefront. It was like a standalone neighborhood church, but it was on the smaller side. It was more what I was used to. And so for me, I welcomed this because I remember what that was like. And, I loved my present church. But hey, going to this smaller church, this is going to be cool because there's a lot of aspects of that you miss. And so I go there. And I don't know if everyone's church does this. But there's a part that when church begins, the pastor will ask, "We would like for visitors to stand, please, and let us know where you're coming from." So I stand with a few other people, and I'm proud to tell the name of my church and tell that, my pastor, Pastor Watson, officiates and sends his greetings and thank you for having me. Thank you for being so welcoming. I appreciate you. And I said a little piece about, why I came and, and he had this gentleman here had invited me, and this was a lovely thing. Thank you so much. And that he couldn't say enough great things about his church, so I had to come. Thank you. I don't know if it was that didn't go over well. I didn't go over well. Who knows? I sat down thinking we're gonna proceed with service because for me, uh, church service is, often part of my self care. At least, especially in those years. And so, sat down thinking, hey, let's proceed. This is gonna be good. Not for the reasons I thought. His pastor proceeded to, I guess, take an issue with my pastor, not directly by name, but say that he heard a name, and that was mentioned, and it wasn't but a few names mentioned, and I guess come against the fact that our church was a big church, and I don't know, something about that not being a good thing. I don't know. I guess he had an issue with it, and I wasn't unfamiliar with people having an issue with someone having a larger church. I knew the stereotypes. My pastor hailed from Detroit, and had come to the South and had built the church from a smaller church and had built it on up, he and his wife. And it was what it was. And I came there myself from recommendation. It was just from word of mouth that people said, hey, this guy's, just somebody who can relate to younger people. People like him. He's relatable. It's just somebody, everywhere I went, people seemed to like the way that he ran his church. And when I got there myself, I liked it too. So, but I knew at the same time that people are very suspicious of, large churches. So, I just, you know, water off a duck's back. I figured it didn't have anything to do with me, and I just let it go. Okay, on with the service. But I did think, that's rude and unusual. You are at the pulpit, sir. That is this really what we're talking about, But you know, he has the mic. Let it go. But the next thing that happened was the most astonishing thing. Actually, you would think that would be, but it was the next thing. The next thing that happened was his wife, who was sitting on the front pew, of course, called my date, the person who asked me to come to the church, and said, and called him. And I thought, oh, well, he must be doing her a favor or he's part of the service. She asked him to come forward and had him sit beside her as if he was a child. Now, we are in our late 20s. I think he was in his early 30s. And he obediently sat there. Now, when I tell this story, people can't believe that he would do that. I see it as he was probably in a difficult spot. This is his pastor and the pastor's wife. That part I get. Part I don't get is that he sat up there with them for the entirety. Yeah, I don't get you sitting there through the altar call, through the benediction, through us singing, thank you, God, thank you, Lord, and doing the turn to your neighbor and give them a hug. And I'm still the entire time I'm back there. So, we saw each other off and on a bit for a grand total of maybe stretching it to 3 weeks is strong because I'm not even sure it lasted 3 weeks, but I'm not even clear about 2. But we just it didn't work, and that was to me, as rude as they were about my pastor, and as rude as those two were about um, making sure that they didn't like me and that he didn't sit with me. Their parishioner didn't sit with me. It escorted me straight to clarity, and I didn't feel that way instantly because listen, I, I, no, I didn't. I didn't feel that way at first. No, at first, I wasn't there. But a little bit of meditation time and prayer and all that, and then I got to you know what? Those folks did you a favor. And so shortly thereafter, I took my pastor's advice. So I felt, it's a jungle out here, and I'm going back to where I came from, and I'm gonna stay there for a second. And went back, and he had long talked about uh, lessons that he and his wife had gained because by now his wife was overseas and starring in plays and singing and doing that type of thing. And they would often have long conversations, and he'd go visit and she'd come visit and this type of thing. And he'd say, we've been married so many years and we raised 4 kids together. And we just marvel at how much we still are yet to get to know our own individual selves and one another, and how they remain curious about that, and the wonder, how wonderful that is, and just getting to know themselves, as individuals, and then coming together and being together, as one, and that type of thing. And he was encouraging us, as singles, um, especially, to definitely continue to use that season to love on yourself, to get to know yourself and appreciate yourself. So I had done that often, but I decided to go back into that season again and do it with, beautiful, intention and energy, and just, do it again, do it, go back, do it big. And I did. I went back to museums, back to plays. I like to perform in plays and I like to write in plays. So I loved being in the audience and being with myself as I analyze, plays in a different way with myself, to my joyful content. I love it. Museums, the same thing. Festivals, just strolling with myself, enjoying the weather, the people. And it just so happened, why do I tell you all that? Because you're talking about love and spending time with yourself. Here's a 360 moment. I go to the restaurant one Sunday evening after I went to my church. I go to a restaurant, and I encountered the restaurant staff again, and by then they're used to seeing me come in and out, and I'm chit chatting with them, and when you're alone, you end up often talking with the other restaurant patrons as well, because they want to talk to you, and you talk to them, and it was that type of thing. So you're not really alone, as it so happens, and I was enjoying myself, and I did one thing my pastor advised us to do. He said, when you go into the restaurant, don't sit in the back, don't sit near the kitchen, don't sit in the corner, don't do that to yourself like you ashamed of something. I just want you to sit, proudly up front. You sit with yourself like you are proud to be with yourself, and that's what I did. So on this particular day, I was dead center in the middle of the restaurant in a nice little table. With myself. Once again, this is kind of my usual, sitting. So comes Mr. and Mrs. Reverend, the same Mr. and Mrs. Reverend, and they did a double take. And they looked back at me, and I looked up from my book because I usually had a book with me, and I looked up from my book, and I saw them come in from my table. And I did the little, I'm from the South, did the little finger wave, hi, and said hi. And it's not phony. That's me. I'm, Southern stuff. And I just said hi. And they just were, they hi. Uh, and they hide. And that was that. What I was proud of is for me is that by then me and the gentleman had long ago broken up. And I just didn't feel any particular way. I was happy. I was joyful. I felt happy to be out with myself. I felt like grateful that in spite of their rudeness, they had escorted me straight to clarity. So I didn't waste a lot of time. He didn't waste a lot of time. We weren't for one another. And though it seemed we were, we both checked a lot of boxes for one another. But no, we weren't for one another. So, not a lot of time was wasted and we could move on. And that was great. And I I was happy. I was happy with myself. I was happy. Just I was just in a joyful, grateful, happy, blessed, abundant, passionate season of life, and I was basking in it. And it was a 360 moment, and I was glad for it. So I'm going to post this on the blog, uh, either wesurviveabuse.com or surviveaffirmations.com. And I'll probably post it with a roundup of articles about confidence. And, because it's always great to maintain in all of our giving, maintain our check on how much we're giving to ourselves. Keep our, you know, watch that indicator light on our own self confidence, on our own. How much are we, monitoring that? How much are we maintaining our own self confidence and that type of thing, our own clarity about things? And I'm actually pretty proud of that season, which is why I could really laugh now, because I was, like I said, I wasn't very happy about it at the time, but um, it was, all in all, it's a great season, fantastic. And speaking of fantastic, I thank you all for listening, and I hope that you all have a fantastic next few days until we connect again, and be great, because that is in you. And all right, I'm out. This is Tanya GJ Prince. Thanks for listening. Y'all be great.